Welcome to Dr. X, where you learn why asking questions and taking responsibility for your own health saves your life. In today's episode, we'll examine the worldwide illegal organ trade market and how these organs are being used on unsuspecting Americans. For some unfortunate people throughout our country, they're faced with an unimaginable situation of needing a new organ. Many of these people are faced with an impossible choice. Either seek out a donor for the failing organ or die. This situation is almost difficult to imagine. Many of us cannot even envision being dealt such news, and the emotional component it stirs in us would be intense. When faced with a situation of life and death, most people, because of the human natural instinct of survival, will choose the option of getting a donor, regardless of where it came from. Or would they? What if one of those unfortunate victims were told that the organ they were about to receive came from an unknown criminal on death row in some developing country? In view of Americans' affluence, in combination with donor failures being quite common, a greedy black market has arisen throughout the world. As with most things on the black market, it's impossible to trace a product's origin. But unlike ancient artifacts or harmless DVD movies, organs being implanted into people's bodies are very serious, and if unregulated, could cause problems far worse than the original issue, while not even preventing death. Imagine if you went to your doctor for your annual checkup and you had some concerns about your lack of energy. Typically, your doctor might prescribe a series of tests. In a couple of weeks, you're told that you must immediately come in and speak with your doctor. On that fateful day, you awake feeling nervous, wondering what awful news the doctor might deliver. You enter his office and are ushered into the examination room. As your doctor walks in, he tells you that he has some awful news. As you demand that he simply tell you what it is, he looks at you and says, "Okay, I'm sorry, but you have kidney failure, and you will die unless we find an organ donor that matches your blood type." At this moment, your fight or flight instinct kicks into overdrive. Do you ignore what your doctor has just told you? Or do you face your untimely death by looking desperately for a donor? Unfortunately, you must methodically and emotionally face this situation. So, like in this hypothetical dramatization, you may ask, what would this person or anyone else in this situation do? Well, immediately, you'll be put on the national donor list, and you will await a donor who has the same blood type as you. If you're lucky, someone close to you can donate the organ without impeding their own body function. But this process can take months or even years, and if you have a blood type that's at all unusual, it might never happen. So imagine if a doctor approached you and said he could get you a matching donor from a foreign country, but would have to be acquired on the black market for about $15,000. Would you do it? Well, whatever your answer, many Americans, with the help of shady doctors, do. And how these organs are obtained is simply shocking. Because of the economic disparities, people from developing countries are targeted for their organs. And because of their horrific poverty, many of these people are only too happy to oblige. So who do you think these organs are being sold to? Well, I think you know the answer, and it's shameful. Wealthy Americans account for the biggest clientele and are directed towards these illegal and outrageous practices by shady doctors and middlemen who profit off the torture and torment of poor people from third world countries. In fact, a recent case in New Jersey has exposed this terrible practice directly in our own backyard. Levi Itzhak Rosenbaum of Brooklyn, who called himself a matchmaker, brokered the sale of black market kidneys, buying organs from vulnerable people from Israel for $10,000 and selling them to desperate patients in the United States for as much as $160,000. As part of this scheme, the organ donors were brought from Israel to this country, where they underwent surgery to remove their kidneys. Prosecutors did not identify which hospitals in the U.S. received the donors and their kidneys. Furthermore, because of the enormous profit involved, if a prospective donor got cold feet, they'd be pressured intensely into doing it with the threat of death, or worse yet, kidnapped, drugged, and raped of their organ. Like any successful business, supply is directed by demand, and in the U.S., demand is high. With 4,540 people dying in the United States last year while awaiting a kidney, there is a thriving black market for kidneys from around the world. Because of this, it is speculated that an increasing number of doctors are deliberately directing their patients to matchmakers like Itzhak Rosenbaum of Brooklyn. As a doctor, this is not only outrageous, but evil. Doctors do not choose who lives and who dies based on economic prosperity. Simply because one comes from a wealthy Western country does not give them the right to farm an organ from an innocent person. When the Third Reich was thriving in Germany, similar reprehensible tactics were employed by Adolf Hitler, and Nazi doctors happily obliged. It is my job to make sure that my profession does not mimic the heinous practice of those Nazi doctors. Therefore, I'm here to expose this outrageous practice. As a doctor, I understand how difficult a decision this is, to tell a patient they must wait for an organ and could possibly die while waiting. It would be very tempting to send a patient to such a matchmaker so they could live. But this is not only criminal, but more specifically against our Hippocratic oath. The best thing we can do is start a vociferous campaign to encourage people to become donors. Otherwise, we are no better than the Nazis. So if your family is approached about getting an organ from the black market, immediately call your Attorney General and have them arrested. This could help you gain exposure via the media and help get a legal and morally acceptable donor, one that will allow you to sleep at night knowing you didn't kill someone else for it. That's all for now, but please join me next time as we continue our journey through the dark side of the healthcare field. I'm Dr. F.